Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Papillion-La Vista Community Schools Board of Education meeting for April 25th, 2022. Section 1, call to order. Item A, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you all. Moving on to item B, roll call, please.
Here.
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 All present.
Thank you. That concludes item 1, call to order. As we note at the beginning of every meeting, the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted at the entrance to the boardroom. Moving on to section 2, communications. Item A are fantastic recognitions for this evening. Dr. Rickley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lotus, members of the board. As most of our community is probably aware by now, we try to spend a little bit of time on each agenda honoring students and staff that have done something really exceptional. Could be academics, could be scholarship, could be athletics. And tonight we are honoring a number of Monarch and Titan students for their accomplishments in the area of Skills USA. After I've read through kind of the description of what they did and the specific names, what we'll do is we'll pause and we'll come up here and take pictures. So mom, dad, or whomever maybe joined you, we'd love to have you come up and take pictures at your convenience. So, Skills USA, Nebraska State Leadership and Skill Conference. Over April 7th through the 8th, 37th Papillion-La Vista Community Schools students competed in over 50 different skill events in Grand Island for the Skills USA State Conference. 21 medals were brought home. Incredibly impressive. 7 students took first in their competition, and they'll have the opportunity to attend the National Skills USA Conference, which is coming up in June. For those of you that aren't aware or have heard of Skills USA, it's a national nonprofit organization. It is a partnership of students, teachers, and industry representatives who work together to assure that our great country has a skilled workforce. Skills USA serves both middle school and high school and college students in programs preparing them for technical skilled and service careers. In addition to the technical skills training, Skills USA provides educational experiences for students in leadership, teamwork, citizenship, and character development. High school students, including our own Monarch and Titan students, participate in the Skills USA extracurricular at the high school for skill development, career exposure, and the opportunity to compete at the state and national conference. So, without further ado, the first group of students is from Papillion-La Vista High School, and we do have at least one of the sponsors here, Mr. Kneifel, the incomparable Scott Kneifel. Thank you, as always, for your leadership, Scott. We are recognizing 2 individuals from Monarch, Ryan Cherney, Senior, for Prepared Speech, Sarah Glazer, Senior, for Job Skill Demo. On behalf of the entire school district and Board of Education, can we recognize these 2 individuals, please? Congratulations again, Ryan and Sarah. Your school district and community are very proud of you. Next up, from Papillion-La Vista South High School, we had 2 sponsors. I think Mr. Campbell, I thought I saw Roger, thanks for being here this evening. Randy Stribley, I don't think Randy was able to make it. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate you representing Titan. We had 4 individuals, a couple, at least 2 of whom are here this evening. We had Riley Middleton, a freshman who scored in job interview. Caden Nimmo, another freshman in restaurant service. James Strawn, a freshman in masonry. I don't believe James is here tonight. I believe he is competing in baseball this evening. A chilly night on the diamond. And Damon Lutterman, a junior. Henry Stamps, a junior, who's also gone at a track meet. They scored in the area of web design. Again, round of applause on behalf of the district and administration, and please come on down. Again, to all of our Titans and to Mr. Campbell, your school district and community are very proud of you. Thank you for being here tonight. We originally had on the agenda honoring DECA. DECA's done some pretty incredible things at both of our campuses the last several weeks, but they're actually still competing, and they may end up doing some things at the national level. So we decided to wait until they completed their season, but just know that we will have them on a future agenda as well. And with that, Mr. Lotus, I'll conclude the recognitions for the evening.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rickley, and congratulations again to all of our state champions. Moving on to item B this evening under Section 2 Communications is our RSP Enrollment Growth and Study presentation. Typically, we're going to treat this item as a discussion item. Due to travel restrictions and conflicts, we had to move it up to earlier in the agenda so they can meet their travel plans. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Richards.
Okay, great.
Introduce.
Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome Mr. Rob Schwartz from RSP Associates, who we contracted back in November of 2021. You know, RSP is focused exclusively with working with schools and helping them with enrollment analysis and many other services. We contracted them for an enrollment analysis, and they've served over 130 clients in 13 states throughout the Midwest. So I want to thank Mr. Schwartz for coming up from the Kansas City area tonight to speak to the board. And I'd also like to thank our tech team, Lucas and Leah Gins, for working with Mr. Schwartz on getting them all the data they need to help with the study completion. So I'll turn it over.
Great. Good evening. Glad to be here this evening. I'm going to talk to you at what I would call a 100,000-foot view. Some things that you need to consider with enrollment, demographics, developments. There will be more information as you start to tie this to other district information like capacity of your buildings. So again, just a little bit about RSP. We've been in business for about 20 years. We work with school districts exclusively. And the cool thing about that is all of the services we provide are geared toward you being able to make better decisions for these kids in each and every classroom. So on our team, we have lots of different people with different certifications, different professional degrees in the areas of planning, geography, even educators. So this is what makes this all come to life. In all of our presentations, I always set some things up with expectations. You can read through some of these things. Many things that I'm going to talk about on these slides are really, again, this 100,000-foot perspective. We've broken the project up into areas where you can quickly find information. My focus this evening is going to be on the enrollments, developments, and what this might mean, again, from a perspective of elementary, middle school, and high school enrollment forecast. So like any district that we work with, we try to understand geography. So you're going to see lots of maps in the presentation to help give a perspective of what's happening in the district. So in this particular map, we're looking at the city limits. What was of interest in your district is the purple hatched lines This is that annexation area, so we're showing that on your maps and how that may relate to as we see new developments in those areas. We have your existing elementary boundaries, all 16 of them, represented by solid colors. We also have your secondary boundaries, so your 3 middle school facilities here with the solid colors representing those boundaries, and then the 2 high school boundaries. So again, trying to get a perspective of how all of this relates back to geography. Here's a feeder diagram of how the elementary buildings directly feed into the middle schools, and then Liberty is split between your 2 high schools. It's another way to look at all of these maps. We further delineated the information into what we call planning areas. So we were focused on what type of developments are occurring in your community. So are they single family, are they twin homes, apartments, all of those different elements. And then that allows us to statistically model what's happening in each of those planning areas based on the information that we apply to them. This is a visual as we look at some of the year-built data that we gathered on how that relates. Again, it's zoomed in really tight, but you can start to see how different areas of the district are building out in their timeline. Again, I mentioned all of these planning areas tied back to a statistical forecast model. Don't expect you to understand everything here other than think about where you live and think about how things have turned over time. How many more kindergartners do you see? Are there more? Are there less? What does that mean? We're trying to tie that back to each of these individual areas. One thing that we focus on is live birth data, and this chart gives you different types of information. Column 2 gives you the number of live births that have been in Sarpy County going back from 2007 through 2019. What we're trying to identify here is what could our market's kindergartner class be 5 years after this live birth information. We know many people move into the community that did not have children born 5 years ago. So this, again, it's a benchmark to understand. When we look at the last 2 columns of this table, this illustrates what a potential range could be. And so again, how do we look at what our future kindergarten classes might be? We break that information from your student data that the district provided to understand the number of students by grade that have been in your district. I'm going back from 2012-13 to now. Big takeaway on this table, we try to look at that senior class and how does that compare the previous year where we had 971 and comparing that to our new kindergarten class of 806 students. So the senior classes tend to be larger than the incoming kindergarten. That's pretty typical. When we look at the cohort change, so this is as those students go from first to second or fifth to sixth, we try to isolate what's happening in each of these grades as a metric of making sure the model doesn't go crazy one way or the other. That's very important because if you go back 3 years ago and then you go back 2 years ago with COVID and where we are now, we've had some different swings. And so our modeling is trying to take into account, hey, there's some things that normally we don't experience, and what could that mean as we start to look at the model forecast over the next 5 years. So we do focus on migration of students, and so this visual here again examines what's happening at the elementary level, the middle school level, high school level, pre-COVID, during COVID, and then this endemic periods of this current school year. Again, we're just trying to isolate what's happening with trends. The left-hand side, the orange bars, represent students that were receiving students the previous year, but in that year that we're analyzing, they're not here. Maybe they still live in the district. Maybe they moved out of the district. We just know they're not receiving services. We like the right-hand side, that brown column. Those represent new students to the district that were not receiving services the previous year. So again, you can see what that breakdown is. A lot of movement at the elementary level. Because we make everything back to the planning areas, this map shows a visual of where we've seen change over the last 5 years. Green represents a decrease, orange represents an increase. The darker the green, the greater the decrease. The darker the orange, the greater the increase. So again, this is a snapshot view. If we start to tie this to other data that we're going to show you, you get a sense of where building activity is, the value of the homes, when it was built, and so on. This map illustrates where we see students based on where we geocoded them. So this is the entire K12 population. Red areas are the greatest density, and this gives you the ability to see the clusters of students. Again, you'll want to look at some of this stuff in greater detail than what I'm going over, and I imagine we'll have more conversations. This visual is where we started to marry up what's happening with enrollments, which is the red line, that's enrollment change. The blue line represents the building activity, and we call that certificate of occupancies, when families can actually move into the inventory. And then the green line represents the census population estimates. So the takeaway here, more people moving into the district, having building activity, but that doesn't always translate into more students. This gets into some of the demographics that we talk about with millennials. We know they're waiting longer to have children, and they're having fewer children. So this starts to have an impact. We also are tracking things with how much debt they have and what that may translate into the housing choices that they make. Will they continue in single family? Will there be more in multifamily? So really a lot of really cool things to start to dig into. Some other things that we're showing you in this presentation is the yield rates that you can expect to get for different types of development. What you're going to see on these next two tables is it's different in each of the attendance areas, and it's different based on the number of units they have and when they were built. So on this table, just to give you a clear understanding of what you see, is each of the 16 elementary buildings. And if I go to the bottom row, that is the district average of K6 students that we get in your district from 2012 to 2021. So if I look at the district average, we were at 29 students back in 2012 for every 100 single-family units. We got 29 kids. And we go to 2021, it's decreased to 26, but we've built quite a bit of new inventory in this particular time frame. So as you build more inventory, that yield rate tends to come down a little bit. But you can see as you go up into each of the elementary attendance areas, very different based on what the housing inventory is. Do the same thing for multifamily. Again, if we look, it's decreased a little bit. It was about 11 students for every 100 multifamily units, and it's dropped to about 9 here in the current school year. And we do this at each of the levels, so you can look at it at the middle school level, the high school level, to get an understanding of what this means over time. We've isolated where we're seeing building activity, so the dots represent where we see that clustering. And you can see we're starting to move into those annexation areas. That's what I would highlight from this map. We looked at where building inventory exists based on the assessor data of when it was built. We've created this map to illustrate that. The newest inventory is going to be in the red areas. The older inventory is going to be in those purple and blue areas. You can start to see where those clusters are. When we look at the home values, here the less affordable areas are going to be in the orange and red, and the more affordable is in the blue. So if we look right around this facility, the older inventory tends to be the most affordable. We have different pockets throughout your district. As we further broke into the developments, we wanted to understand, okay, here's the maps, here's where things are being built, here's what we're seeing with the assessor data. This pie chart works backwards from the most current, and if you go counterclockwise, goes to the first units in time. Basically, almost 50% of your units have been built since 2000. So again, a very new emerging district. Another way to look at this is this chart where the bars represent the start of the decade is gray, and the new units that were built during that decade are orange. And so we can see there's been a lot of building activity over the last couple of decades. Then we have a series of maps that you'll want to look at in detail that gets at our conversations with planners, city folks on where we're seeing activity from our tour. We drove through your district to look at these developments, but then we verified that with the city to understand the timing of things that are emerging. And so green areas represent what's current activity. Purple is where we're out closer to 10 years where we may see some more activity. Yellow is going to represent something more in the 5-year time frame. And you'll see this, I think we have 4 maps, and we'll kind of showcase where those activities will occur and how it relates to the annexation areas. So again, you'll want to look at those in greater detail. The value of all of this is it's tied back to our model. So as these developments come online, we're factoring in, hey, it's this type of building, generates this many students, how many building permits are issued in each of those given years. All of this is calibrated back to this table, so you can see various information. If I just highlight, we have the existing units at the time we did this study, potential units that still could be built in those developments, so you get a sense of that, and then what middle school it's in. And we break that down at the 5-year level and the 10-year level, trying to get the idea of the shovel-ready projects. This then transitioned into our projections. I'm not sure what I'm seeing up there. It's probably some sort of PDF conversion issue. But our forecast does go out 5 years. So I'll kind of illustrate what we have, and we'll make sure the district has something that looks a little bit nicer than what you see there. Basically, as we look at this forecast, we're currently at about 11,700 K12 students, and we have you growing to almost 12,200 students in 26-27. If I break this down at the elementary level, currently we're at about 5,900 students, growing to a little over 6,500 students. When we look at the middle school level, we're at about 1,900 students, growing to, or actually staying a little bit of a decrease down to about 1,800. And then when we look at the high school, we're at about 3,800 and maintaining that 3,800 enrollments. So the bulk of the growth is going to be at the elementary level. So that is a testament to the type of development who we're attracting into the community. There's going to be some further information that comes out probably within the next month where we tie this into the building capacities, and you'll be able to see this by building. And then that starts to bring greater vision on what do you need to do in particular facilities. Is there a boundary change needed? Do we do additions? Do we plan for new facilities? So there's going to be some really exciting things that we're going to be able to have as far as takeaways with having a study that goes into the detail that we've provided you and are talking about this evening. Some of the things I want you to take into account really are on the bottom part of this slide. Some things that we can watch to make sure are the projections hitting where we think they should be hitting. And the first I mentioned back on the table with the exiting, graduating senior class and the incoming kindergartners that come in. Second thing is with live birth data. Do we see something that changes? Many people went into this pandemic and they thought we would have a lot more children because people would be at home. That is not translated anywhere that we've done work here in the Midwest. We have fewer live births. We also want to look at migration trends. Those are things that are evolving based on how people maybe perceive where they can live. Do their place of business, do they allow them to be in what I would call location neutral, where they can live anywhere and their kids can have the services of whatever's being provided where they live. So maybe they don't want to live specifically here in Papillion. Maybe they want to live in Colorado. So we have to watch some of those migration trends. Development trends, this is tied to things that we know the cost to build is about 85% greater for residential activity since August. Interest rates are increasing. The supply chain, being able to get things, so we have to watch that with development trends. Does it translate into fewer units being built or whatnot? And then capacity solutions. Once we have a capacity range, if that's established for each of these buildings, how will that then relate to what we're forecasting for enrollment in these buildings? So if we watch those things, you're going to be able to kind of understand each of the next couple years when we come back and we talk about these things. You'll be able to understand how well did this translate and what does that mean as it evolves with these newest trends each of the next couple years. With that, I'll open up to comments, questions. Any of you may have things that maybe you want to see or more information, whatnot. Be happy to assist you in that.
Comments or questions?
have been able to provide for us. And this it does help us in the planning of the next 10 years. So I'm looking forward to delve into this whole thing and see exactly where we're going.
I want to echo thanks for putting it all together and coming up and sharing it with us. Over the last couple of years, obviously, you're talking about the live births dropping, which is, could be tough to forecast out when the last couple of years have just been so different from previous years. Is the general expectation is that those numbers go back up to closer to average, or are those expected to stay on the lower end and even potentially continue to trend downward?
I think there's a few things with the millennials that we definitely want to watch as I scan back to that live birth page. I think it's not about what the average is, it's going to be what this new emerging trend is. And so when we get some of the official 2020, 2021 live births, I'll be able to more definitively say, hey, are we going to go back to, let's say, a number where we were closer to 2,700 live births, or is this 2,400, 2,500 the new norm? And if that's the case, then it's like tying it back to why we spent so much time on your existing housing inventory. When was it built and what were those values? Because that's going to tie into this subdivision life cycle. How quickly do we see turnover, and who does that attract into your community? What can they afford, and what's the likelihood that they may have school-age children? So we want to watch that, and I think probably over the next 12 to 15 months, we'll have a better understanding. Does that go back up, or does it stabilize, or does it go down? My take is more people are moving into Sarpy County, so it's about what that demographic looks like, and if they are younger families, we should see the number kind of rebound up just because of job growth and the desire to be in this county.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep an eye on, but for the live births, at least we know we're not going to, those children wouldn't come here that year or the next year, right? You got 5 years, 6 years, but it's important to stay on top of, because if that changes, it can throw off all those projections. And then the one other question I had, I think you called it student yield rates per 100 households. Do those numbers per neighborhood change over time? Like, is it, after a neighborhood matures, does that number go up, or does it go down? Like, or do you see the neighborhood stay pretty flat?
Good question. So typically, if we mapped out just to a specific development, as it's being built, when it's new, we'll see usually a delay before we hit the top end of the number of students that we get. And then the subdivision life cycle, it usually starts on the path where there's going to be fewer kids. Rarely do we see a regreening where it goes back to whatever the top population was in that particular development. And it kind of makes sense if you think about this. There's excitement to move into a new area. So families move into the new areas, they stay there, their kids go through the system. As they move out, it's at a slower rate than when the activity was actually built. The regreening is always tied to the age of the inventory, which we'll get into condition, but then the value of that property. And then you start to add in other variables of like, how far are you from employment? Can you work from home? And that starts to shape what we see for that subdivision life cycle. But they're all different. Everyone is different.
Gotcha. And then maybe the last question, hopefully. Is there a correlation where the schools are to the neighborhoods? Like, if you put schools, if for newer neighborhoods, if we know there's an elementary school in it, does that student yield rate, is that typically then higher than maybe a neighborhood that doesn't have an elementary school in it?
As a general rule, the closer you are to the building, the more likely there could be students, loosely because of the value of those homes, right? That's going to dictate some of this over time. The other thing that happens is when you plan to build a new building, what that really does is increases the units that can be built and absorbed by the attractiveness of households moving and wanting to be close to a building. So those are the two things I would take away from that.
All right. Appreciate it.
This is a lot of information. But in a cursory glance this evening, it appears that you've done a great job of really getting us to a place where we can understand where we've been, where we are, and where we may be going in the future. So I look forward to really diving in and taking a more in-depth look at this. But thank you so much for the information this evening.
You're welcome.
One of the things that that really prompted this study from our part was we know we're going to continue to grow. And these types of studies are important for all manner of school districts, but they're particularly important for fast-growing school districts because we make decisions based on this data in the area of HR and facilities. And those are typically two of the most expensive decisions that a school district can make. This board is well aware about 85% of our total district expenditures are tied to salary and benefits. Facility growth is equally expensive, as we all know. An elementary, including the lot, costs around $14 million, and the price is only going up. So having this data in hand to build short-term and long-term staffing models and short-term and long-term facility planning models is absolutely critical. This is the second time we've done this type of study in the 9 years that I've been here. This is extremely comprehensive, and we're really excited. As I was kind of listening, Rob, you did a terrific job of explaining, but I'm trying to think of what are the 2 or 3 takeaways for the lay person, the person in the audience that may not be a planner or a statistician, for example. And I think one of the most important takeaways is we're still growing. We're still a growing district. Our historical rate has averaged about 2.3%. Obviously, that slowed down. It went backwards during the pandemic, but we anticipate that will continue to grow. I think the other thing that our voters and our citizens and our taxpayers really need to understand is that previous bond work has positioned us very well at the secondary level. And by that, I mean the 3 middle schools and the 2 high schools. We've done major expansion work at Papillion Middle School, La Vista Middle School. Liberty's coming right up. Obviously, we've got 2 high-profile projects. Titan's complete. Monarch is going to be complete hopefully by this fall. What our voters did have allowed us to have a whole bunch of really feeling good about where we're at those 5 buildings. Which brings me to the last point, and that is the elementary level, which, as Rob described, is where most of the growth will occur. Middle school looks pretty stagnant, modest growth at the high school. But we're going to continue to grow at the elementary level. So as we start to have conversations as a district, as a board with our community about what's needed next, these data would lead me to believe that an elementary building is probably in our not too distant future, along with some other expansion and renovation work. So really, really important stuff, Rob. And as Val said, we know that more detailed conversations will come, but this is a really great start to the conversation.
All right, well, no, doesn't look like we have any other further board comments, questions? All right, seeing none, appreciate it. Thank you for making the trip up here, and safe travels back this evening, and we'll continue to digest all the information and come back with more questions as they come up.
Outstanding. You guys have a nice evening.
Thank you, too.
Thanks, Rob. Safe travels.
All right, well, that concludes item B under Section 2 Communications. Moving on to item C, our military advisory. I'd like to invite up, obviously, Colonel Cooley is not out there, so I'll invite up his designee.
Is this okay?
Yes,
Okay.
welcome.
All right, cool. Good evening. Colonel Kristen Thompson. I'm the wing commander at Offutt. So for the 55th Wing, as I understand, actually, so this is my first time coming, so thanks for having me, and thanks for being so supportive of our airmen and our families, and then certainly of Offutt Air Force Base. We're forever grateful. I tell everybody my 3 priorities of as a wing commander are mission, families, and relationships. So you guys fall square into those last 2 with the family and the relationships anything I can do to support the community, because I know how well you guys support us, I'm all in. And then when we're taking care of the families, I know the families are going to take care of us. So I'm tremendously grateful for everything that this community does for the base. And the base is, if you didn't know, it's the second largest base in the United States Air Force. So it's gigantic. I've got airmen all over the world doing wonderful things on behalf of Nebraska, on behalf of the United States of America, and on behalf of the world. You guys all know everything that's going on right now. We've got a lot of folks involved, which should make you guys very, very proud. It makes me very, very proud. Let's see, some of the big ticket items that we're working through right now. I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures online, but we've demoed a lot of those old gross buildings that were damaged from the flood. So rebuilding back from 2019, which makes me really happy. The two wing commanders prior to me had the hard job of working through the flood. I get the good job of building back afterwards. So I feel very, very fortunate about that. So we've started several of the projects, and then we've got a few that will take, upwards of 5 years, because they're MilCon projects, and they just take a long time to rebuild some pretty significant campus work. The runway is doing really, really well too. I tell everybody I'm living through the trifecta of terrible, which was the runway, COVID, and the flood. And on all three accounts, we're doing pretty darn good. I had the Air Force Civil Engineering Center here today, actually, to take me out to go look at the runway, and it's on time. So it's going to open up, we think, around the end of September, maybe early October. So for us, that is tremendous. If you didn't know, we have 750 airmen going back and forth between Offutt and Lincoln every single day. And so that's significant to me. That's a lot of airmen on the road when it's super windy outside, or there's hail or bad weather. I'm a proud mother to a bunch of airmen that are going back and forth, so I want to make sure they get there safely. And you'll be proud of the fact that the same amount of ops that we do normally at Offutt, we've been doing down at Lincoln. So our Air National Guard partners have been tremendous. Everybody from here down to Lincoln has just been really, really helpful in making sure that we can fulfill all of our national obligations, which, as many of you know, are intense and a lot. Let's see, what else did I think of? COVID. We've been doing really, really well. So we based our mask wear on how the county is doing. And so because Sarpy County has been low in reported cases, we're able to kind of, I'm able to kind of dictate how I want to kind of run the base, which has been tremendous. So we're very grateful that Nebraska has been doing really, really well from a COVID perspective, because we're able to walk around without masks, which is awesome. So getting close to summer PCS season, so you'll see a lot of people bebopping around, changing out, new faces, especially from a leadership perspective, not only at the 55th Wing, but across the base. We host 50 different mission partners on base, so whether that be STRATCOM, the Weather Wing, DPAA, multiple intelligence units, recruiting squadrons, our Navy brothers and sisters. We've got tons of folks changing in and out. The base has about 8,000 people, and then not to mention the 57,000 people outside of the base that we help and support too. So lots of movement that will be going on. But as you guys know, with COVID, a lot of those moves just get backed up because of people just fighting their way out of that COVID bunker, which is just going to take a long time. But we're ready for a big PCS season, and we're looking forward to getting the runway back. You'll see we're going to do it big, not air show big, but you'll see a lot of planes coming in to celebrate the fact that we're bringing that back. And then if you weren't tracking, summer of 23, we'll have the big air show down at Lincoln, but the 55th Wing is going to partner with the 155th Air Refueling Wing to make sure we do it well and we go big. It'll be awesome. So I think that's basically it from me. Open to any questions that you all have.
Did you say something about the new I understand it's supposed to have the best weather department in the whole nation.
So I will say weather wing, yes, we have the only weather wing in the Air Force is on our installation. That's run, it's the 557th Weather Wing, and it's run by Colonel Pat Williams. He's a dear friend of mine. Yeah, I mean, they are awesome. And they've got GSUs all over the world. And what Pat will always say, I'm sorry that I'm stealing his thunder, is weather drives behavior. It absolutely does. There's several, D-Day is a perfect example. But yeah, they are a tremendous asset, not only to us as Americans, but to Offutt Air Force Base, because they are professional at what they do. They're the best at what they do, and they're very exclusive because they're the only ones. So they have to be the best.
I'm just going to get a little gushy, and I'm going to
Yeah.
say thank you for being here.
Yeah,
It's
my
happy to
pleasure.
meet you and
Yeah.
hear your story and tell us about the base. Offutt has always been a point of pride. I've lived here all my life, and it's been one of those things that I can say when I go places that we have Offutt Air Force Base, and we have SAC, and we have the underground, and we have
That's
all
right.
those things that are wonderful. So
Yeah.
if ever the underground is open, a tour would be nice. Would you like to go down to the other? But thank you. I'm happy to hear the base doing so well and that you're improving it, and those buildings were looking a little shaggy. So in all things, be grateful. We can now have new buildings and new technology. So
That's right.
Thank you.
I mean, you guys know the mission at Offutt is so darn important, and many of the folks, we fly 6 different aircraft, and we're spread out over 6 different geographically separated units. Nobody does what we do. So being able to build our infrastructure and our facilities back and build them back better than what they were before is just going to be huge for our airmen. And I can't wait. I wish I would be here to see it all, but it's going to be tremendous. Yeah.
Are you going to be able
Yes,
to
sir.
bring everybody back when the runway opens? Because I know without some of those buildings, I don't know if you're going to be able to house everybody, or is it going to be like a phased plan? Or?
I know, yeah. So it's going to be probably a 2-week phase at least to kind of transition everybody back. I mean, it's a huge muscle movement to get everybody from Lincoln back to Offutt. So we'll kind of phase it over, a couple of weeks to a month to bring everybody back. But yeah, we've had to get creative in how we occupy buildings, because when that whole campus was just destroyed, I mean, we've got security forces in old airmen dorms. We've got, our intelligence squadrons in the old Martin Bomber building. And then we're bringing folks from one of the other intelligence squadrons over into Building 500, which was the old Stratcom headquarters, to make sure that they can still continue to do their very important job. So we've got people spread out. It's not ideal, but I would say we just barely have enough space. Thank goodness. But good question.
Colonel, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
I suspect Lieutenant Colonel Bailey, who's a retired pilot,
Terrific.
understands having a wing commander attend our board meeting. That's no small thing. So for
Yeah.
our families that are behind you and that are watching on YouTube, to have someone of the colonel's stature attend a board meeting is no small feat.
Yeah.
In fact, some of you are probably aware that current U.S. Congressman Don Bacon was former 55th Wing Commander and retired after 30-some years as a one-star general in the Air Force. So the bar has been set very high.
All of my predecessors.
All of your predecessors have
Yeah,
gone
they're-
on to incredible things. I have
Wonderful.
to share an anecdote. I'm on the Offutt Advisory Council.
Yeah.
And we had a briefing. And I was swarmed after the meeting. They're like, Andy, have you met the new colonel? You simply must meet her. She's just the most impressive and smart and with it and dedicated person. And of course, I'm just dying to meet the colonel, and I did. And she's a delight. And we know that we won't have you for very long. That's just the nature of the Air Force and life and the military. But we're so grateful for your service. We're grateful for everything that Offutt and the 55th does. We have about 9% military dependents. We're not nearly as large as Bellevue in that regard. I think they have about 30%. But we love our military. We're grateful for our airmen, and we couldn't do our job without you. So thank you truly for everything you've done.
Very, very kind of you to say. I'm here speaking on behalf of the 55th Wing, but I have tons of pilot friends that are in the 595th that all live in Papillion. So, there's a lot of love for this city, no doubt, especially coming from the 55th Wing and all of the tenants. Yeah. Yeah, you bet. All right.
Colonel,
Thank you.
can I also just
Yeah,
say
sure.
thank you for everything that Offutt has
Yeah.
done in April for Purple Up activities
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
how much we've enjoyed jumping on
Yeah.
board with all of those in so many of our schools, and just enjoying supporting those military children that we have here, and appreciate that you all really do a great job celebrating them as well. And then the HR and Student Services person in me was very glad to hear you mentioning the PCS season.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate, so it sounds like you think it'll be a pretty big season for that. Do you anticipate that will mostly be completed by the time we're heading into a school year, the next school year? Or I'm kind of hearing from some people around the country that maybe they're hearing a little bit later than normal. So just was kind of curious what you see for that as far as fall goes.
I think the aim is always to be kind of on time and to make sure that folks get those movements done before school season starts, definitely. I mean, the Air Force is very conscious of that, and I know the other services are as well. I would say for the most part, people will aim for that, but I know there'll be several families that are just, especially ones coming from overseas. I mean, that's always so tough. But, here we're at least committed to making sure that, we're taking care of families, especially as they transition in. And I'll put in a little plug too, is we have this program called True North, which is, there's only a few bases across the U.S. that have it, Air Force bases, and we're fortunate because we're one of them. It's kind of embedded in proximate care, mental health, and religious support for all of our airmen. But the other thing that's a hallmark of our True North program is we have a welcome center, which we're really proud of. I'm really big on if I'm going to bring a family and an airman to the base, I want to make sure there's one-stop shop and we can take care of all of their needs from one location. And I really believe that when you welcome somebody to base, you're welcoming them and hopefully retaining them in the Air Force. And so if you welcome them well and you wrap your arms around them and you want to make them feel that they're a part of the community, they're going to want to stay, and then they're going to want to thrive. So that's a big part of True North, and the PCS season, that welcome center is going to be hopping. And to your point, I'll make sure I go down there and make sure that they know that, this is going to be a pretty big PCS season now that we're kind of out of COVID and people are allowed to move. We got to get it right. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, it's good. Really good. All right. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
All right, that concludes item C, our military advisory under Section 2 Communications. Moving on now to item D, our public comment for items not on tonight's agenda. As a reminder to those in attendance and those watching at YouTube, an individual may not exceed 3 minutes, and the total time for all individuals who would like to speak shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of the board approves extending the allocated time. Again, as a matter of protocol, I'll call the person requesting public comment up to the desk with the microphone, and I just ask for their name and address for the record. All right, first up this evening for public comments on items not on tonight's agenda, Ms. Logan Eby. I think all of our speakers know, but I forgot to mention, Ms. Baranko has the timer, about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, the first beep with the final beeps at 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Logan Eby. I reside at 1401 Edgewater Circle, Papillion, Nebraska, 68046. My comments are related to the vote for a PLCS post on 3/14/2022 before the page was removed and the claim I filed with the Sarpy County Treasurer against Dr. Rickley for violation of his oath of office bond. On the Facebook page, Vote for PLCS on 3/14/2022, the anonymous admin posted the following. Logan Eby brings up open meeting law concerns. She also continues to try to hunt down financial errors made by the district. She has certainly changed her tone tonight from the previous 2 years now that she has announced herself as a candidate. Over the last 2 years, she has been furiously attacking the school district and board members. Tonight, she is likely trying to mend relationships. However, parents and current board members are unlikely to forget her previous actions and words. On Monday, April 25th, 2022, I filed a claim with the Sarpy County Treasurer's Office against Dr. Rickley's Superintendent of Papillion-La Vista Community Schools for violating his oath of office bond pursuant to Nebraska Revised Statute 11-101 and Nebraska Revised Statute 13-905 Political Subdivision Tort Claim Act. I copied the Board of Education and Dr. Rickley in my email to Mr. Trace Jones, Interim Sarpy County Treasurer. A copy of the claim is available on papillionpatriots.org with all of the supporting documentation. If anyone has questions or would like to speak with me personally regarding my claim against Dr. Rickley's oath of office bond, please email me at lowen.eby@gmail.com. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Next up this evening for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, Ms. Brittany Holtmeier. Welcome.
Hi. Okay, Brittany Holtmeier, 2007 Ridgewood Drive. After reading social media this past week and seeing concerns that a parent in our community was having within the schools regarding homework assignments not being completed but receiving outstanding grades, it's alarming. I am thankful for the parents for standing up. They care for their kids and their futures, and an easy way out gets you nowhere in life. Where is the accountability with the students and their teachers? I'm not saying this is every teacher because it is not, but one is enough in my book. We are failing the children and they are falling behind. The CDC has set milestones back by 2 years to make it appear that everything is normal and that your kid is right on track. Are we really helping the students by passing them? How is this beneficial for the student? Throughout this whole pandemic, we have seen a decrease in student academics, a delay in speech, and a huge mental health crisis within the students. We show one beautiful world at the meetings during presentations, but on social media, parents are sharing different sides. For 2020 and 2021 school year, statewide, it is 48% proficiency in English, language arts, and 46% in math. Papillion has a 57% in English, language art, and 53% in math. Papillion is the second lowest cost per student and next to the last scores in the county. Elementary school rankings, Papillion is 175th out of 438. Middle school, 44th out of 220. High school is 65th out of 208. This is no longer an educational system, but a re-education indoctrination system in which it is failing our students. We are in a trap of our own making, created by the very people elected to defend our most innocent. Our children are the future. Unfortunately, these children have been the collateral damage from these recommendations and protocol being pushed on them. We need to get back to our basics. We need the parents to continue to use their God-given parental rights, and you, the board, need to start focusing on, are we doing the right thing for our students and staff? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up this evening for public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, Ms. Laureen Renante. Welcome.
Good evening, Laureen Renante, 1108 Park Drive in Papillion. My comments are directly related to Sue Ann Witt's comments from the previous board meeting, April 11th, 2022. Sue Ann Witt, you made a request of the administration to find out what the past public records requests have been for the last 24 months. You also stated that you wanted to know the cost, extra work, etc. Clearly you have an agenda, and your request, although innocent in appearance, is not innocent. You would be adding to the workload for the administration, and basically you made a public records request. You have signaled and essentially indicated to all the residents of the Papillion-La Vista School District that you are watching them, and that public records requests are something that you are not in favor of. You were elected to uphold an oath of office and to provide open and transparent government. Public records requests are the way for the residents to obtain records they wish to inspect. It truly appears that your trip to San Diego, the NSBA National School Boards Association, spurred this bold comment from you, and or that someone in the administration whispered in your ear to make this request. If you really want to find out this information, you would have asked this in an email or personal conversation with the appropriate person from the administration. But instead you chose to speak this in the public square, and in my opinion, as an intimidation factor. So let's pretend you receive this information, then what? What is your goal? What do you want to do with this information? Why was this so important for you to make this request publicly? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes item D, public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Moving on to item E under Section 2 Communications, our Superintendents Report. Dr. Rickley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lotus, members of the board, and for our community that is here this evening, thank you for being here, and those that are watching at home via YouTube, we're always thrilled to have your participation as well. The school year is fast approaching its end, and we've got some exciting things that have not only occurred in the last couple of weeks, but that will be approaching in the next several days. One of the highlights was the STEM ribbon cutting at Papillion-La Vista High School, and we had several board members there. It was the event was put on by our foundation to highlight not only the cornerstone sponsors that have supported our school district and our STEM program, but several other community partners as well, including Metro Community College. Ms. Siri did a wonderful job of outlining the program requirements. We had several students talk a little bit about how some of the STEM coursework has changed their lives, and then we certainly heard from staff too. So it was a terrific event. It highlighted the wonderful things happening at Monarch and at Titan because the facilities are identical, and thrilled just to see everybody come out to support our schools. Also wanted to thank Congressman Bacon and his staff. He was recently in the school district last Friday. Had two visits. One, Monarch. He wanted to visit the new additions on the north side of the building, including the STEM classrooms. And then he went to Papillion-La Vista South and did the same visit because, again, the facilities are virtually identical at the two high schools. While he was at Papillion-La Vista South, we did a surprise visit to one of our 11th graders, Ms. Madison Eisert. Received a congressional award, which is a very high honor for a civilian. This award was based on a number of criteria, including leadership, grades, community involvement, physical fitness, and it's a very, very small number of students nationally that receive this award. And Madison, we know for sure, received the silver designation, and Congressman mentioned that she might also be still in the running for the gold designation, which is even rarer still. So Madison, I don't know if you're watching tonight's board meeting, but we're awfully proud of you and your efforts. Also wanted to share with the board, we're starting to wrap up our advisories. I think the board and most of our community is aware that we have a number of groups that we meet with throughout the course of the school year. We have a teacher advisory, for example. We have a classified staff, for example, that we meet with quarterly. And, of course, our student advisory that we meet with once a month, 8 Monarch and 8 Titan students. And those meetings are a wonderful opportunity for us as administrators to hear what our staff are saying, our teachers are saying, and our students are saying. And it's just been an invaluable growth opportunity, I think, for all of us. Also wanted to remind the board that the legislative session is officially over. It wrapped up last Wednesday. Yes, Ms. Witt, you are right. Thank goodness. The short session is over. We had some victories. We had some things that we were hoping that didn't happen that would, but that's just the nature of the legislative effort. So at our next board meeting in May, I believe we have Mr. Gay and Caitlin to come in and give us a recap of the session. So if you have questions about specific bills or what might happen next, that would be a good time to do so. And also just wanted to remind the board that we've got a whole slug of year-end celebrations. You can see those at the bottom of your future board calendar. I think I've also sent out a list that Ms. Baranko prepared in my weekly update. And as a final reminder to our board and our community, the primary for the school board is May 10th. We have 9 declared candidates for 3 candidates. 6 will move on. And I just would like to take this opportunity to wish the best of luck to all 9 of our candidates. And with that, Mr. Lotus, I would conclude my superintendent comments.
Thank you, Dr. Rickley. Moving on to item F, board comments this evening.
I would like to back up on your STEM Academy. A lot of board members were there. It was well attended. The support from the community is outstanding. Mr. Denker's endowment is a sustainable way to keep our program fresh with new technologies and not have to, when I went to school, I was using technology that had been dead a long time, but we still did it, and it's really nice to have that new technology in those amazing facilities. The students who spoke were articulate, and I could not believe the presence they gave. They were just, I couldn't believe it. I can't imagine being that young and having that kind of ability to speak in front of a crowd like that. It was just, we have great students and great teachers in our school. Thank you.
I just wanted to tell everybody, make sure you all help me out here and cheer loudly on the 8th for commencement. I will be here. I'll be gone for about 2 weeks in Columbus, Ohio. So appreciate your comment about the voting. I think Doc and I were talking. I went and turned in my absentee ballot or early ballot or whatever, so I highly recommend everybody go out and vote. Everybody out in the community, please get out there and vote. Do your civic duty. I'm very disappointed. I look at this whole calendar and I'm sitting there going, I can't be that one, can't be at that one. So hopefully I'll make it to a couple things, but like I said, the rest of it, I'm sure we'll be well represented at the rest of them. So thank you.
I was also at the ribbon cutting, which was great to see. I mean, the turnout was amazing. And we had 3 students give speeches. I think was it 2 Monarchs, 1 Titan, but I mean, all 3 of them were great. Did a lot better job than I would have back in as a junior or senior. So the turnout was great. I wish KETV would have used a better picture of me in the paper. I wasn't looking the most graceful in their picture, but that's all right. It was a great event. Also, a couple weeks ago, I did the lunch at Prairie Queen, the first one I had done since I've been on the board. So I want to thank all the staff for joining me for their lunch break. I know they don't get that much time, so taking it to chat with a board member, and Dr. Rickley and Ms. Hyman and Kathy was there, is probably not something they're overly looking forward to at times, but I thank them for doing it. What we talked through was classroom sizes, which, in that RSP presentation, again, this was for Prairie Queen. I think it was showing all the growth in that area. It's just been difficult over these last couple of years to stay on top of, and they're seeing it in some of their classroom sizes. So we as a district need to rethink that for next year, and all of those schools that are just seeing all of these houses developed around them. And then the other main topic that they wanted to talk through that we've heard over and over again this year and last year was the ongoing para shortages and the turnover with it. Now I know that as we've gotten closer to the end of the year, has been better than at the beginning of the year, but still one of the main concerns from the staff at Prairie Queen, and I, from what I hear, other schools as well. So again, those 2 were the 2 topics that were top of mind for them. So that's it.
I can echo that. I had my first liaison lunch in quite a while last week at Anderson Grove. And before we talked about very similar topics: class sizes, paras, just great feedback. I like how candid they can be and ask questions not only of our administration, the board, and as well as their principal and administrator, just on ideas and plans and things that we can be thinking about now that the year is coming closer to an end, to then get some things out for discussion. So I was excited to go to Anderson Grove because I haven't been there since obviously we did some significant renovations, and wow, what a difference. Anderson Grove and Hickory Hill are of this very similar design, and to see the front entryway expansion and having the kitchen, the finishing kitchen there. I know my kids have loved having a finishing kitchen because of the multiple options that they get to choose from each day. It allows them, one, to make another decision on learning to make decisions on what they want, but it gives greater variety to kids that might have a more particular appetite than others. I was able to get a tour of the building and the expanded areas, and having doorways, though there may be multiple classes now. At least there was now a doorway to close off those 3 classes from the hallways, as well as from a security standpoint. So what a beautiful improvement to that school, and I know that the staff and we're very proud of the renovations that happened. And I had not been down in that area in quite a while, and there's a lot of construction going on around the K part area, more apartments than I could recognize, and just lots of road construction as well. So very good. But the last thing was, again, the STEM Academy. So big thanks to our public and our voters, for voting and including that in our last bond. As someone that's employed for folks in the heavy equipment and heavy equipment technicians, diesel technicians, that's skilled labor. We sure could use a whole lot more. I think at any given time we have 30 or 40 open requisitions across the state, and as fast as you get them, they quickly turn over, as everybody needs them. So I'm looking forward to our expansion of the programs that we can offer. And again, a big thanks to the foundation for going out and getting great community partners that, as Ms. Witt said, it's only as good as we can sustain the high level, and as well as just support the curriculum as it obviously is going to evolve. And my favorite part was a non-traditional ribbon cutting. The robot was pretty. I'm sorry, the robot was pretty cool. I wish we would have had a robotics program when I was at Monarch, but. Any other board comments this evening? All right. Moving right along. Moving on to item G under Section 2 Communications, our committee reports. Building, Grounds, and Finance.
We have not met. We will be meeting later on this week.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tafoya. Human Resources and Student Services.
We did not meet.
And Curriculum and Americanism.
We have not met.
All right. Sorry, Ms. Witt. Thank you, Ms. Witt, and thank you, Ms. Fisher. Trying to move us along. All right, that concludes Section 2 Communications. Moving on to Section 3 Action Items. Item A, our action by consent.
Make a motion to approve the action by consent as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Fisher and a second by Mr. Madler. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Moving on to item B, our board meeting minutes of April 11th, 2022.
I make a motion to approve our board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Bailey and a second by Ms. Witt. Roll call, please. Yes.
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 All right, moving on to item C, our facility projects related to the 2018 bond proceeds. Mr. Richards.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lotus. We'll continue the discussion on the public bids for additional projects related to the 2018 bond proceeds. A list of 6 things have been identified by the Buildings, Grounds, and Finance Subcommittee and administration to bring to the board to go out for public bid on. Once we have these, the approval to go out for public bid on, we get pretty specific in scope and design with these items, and then go out for the public bid with that information, and then we'll bring that information back to the board to take a look at and see where we're at cost-wise with these particular projects. But costs are escalating as we speak here in especially the last few months. We've really seen it with construction projects. So we hope we can get these 6 done, but we'll just have to wait and see what the bids come out with once it's approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any since the last meeting.
Do you have these listed in the order of preference, or is this just listed to indicate the different projects?
Yeah, just a list of general, not in any particular order at this time.
Did you say, I don't know if I'm repeating something here, how long are you giving for the bids to come?
We usually give about 2 to 3 weeks of public bid, and our architects help us get it on a site to where almost all the contractors around the area are able to see them.
Okay.
And then request more information on.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the facility improvements listed to go out for public bid.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Medler and a second by Dr. Tafoya. Any further board comments or questions regarding this item? All right, seeing none and seeing no public comment requests for this item, I'll move for a roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, moving on to our final item under Section 3 action items, item D, Policy 4000 Personnel. Dr. Settles.
Hi there. Yes, during this month of April, the 4,000 policies were reviewed and there are no changes recommended. So it's recommended that the board acknowledge those Series 4,000 policies. Thank you.
I move to acknowledge the review of Series 4000 Personnel Board policies.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Witt and a second by Mr. Bailey. Seeing no further board comments or public comment related to this item, I'll move for roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Right, that concludes Section 3 action items. Moving on to Section 4 discussion and information items this evening. As noted earlier, obviously the RSP enrollment growth was more of a discussion and information item. Appreciate the board understanding and being willing to move that item up to accommodate Mr. Schwartz's travel schedule. So I will turn it over to Ms. Siri to welcome our guest to present on the Title I Annual Family Meeting presentation.
Sure. Good evening, Board of Education. We've saved the best for last. That's my theory here. As our assistant principals from our Title I buildings walk up here, I'm going to introduce you. They're going to share with you tonight an update of our Title I Family Night that took place a few weeks ago at La Vista Middle School. But before they do that, I also want to recognize in the audience tonight to support them are our wonderful Title I principals. So they have also come to show their support and leadership here as they were also part of this celebration. So tonight, who you have in front of you are our hardworking leaders from our Title I buildings. We have Devin Watson, who's from Parkview Heights. Brooke Moorhead, who's from Golden Hills Elementary, Jen Noble, who is from La Vista West Elementary, and Kristen Nelson, who is at Carriage Hill Elementary. And like I said, they're going to give you an update of their parent meeting. So take it away, guys.
All right, well, thank you so much for having us this evening. We also wanted to recognize Ms. Tracy McShane. She is the Title I Assistant Administrator at G. Stanley, but she was unfortunately unable to join us this evening. So as Ms. Shreen shared with you, we are pleased to share information with you on our Title I annual meeting. It was on Thursday, April 7th from 6 to 7:30 at La Vista Middle School. And we had over 400 people attend our event, so it was quite busy. And that included our building principals, building staff members, both certified and classified. We were happy to see them with us. Our reading recovery, EL, and Title I teachers were a huge help. And the number of individuals who signed in, we had 150 plus families for a total of over 400 people. So at our sign-in tables, as you can see here, our fabulous building administrators helped check in our families. They handed each family a color-coded folder according to their building color that we assigned them, which included specific Title I information, which Brooke will then be sharing with you momentarily.
Right now. So you've all been given a sample folder that was given to our parents, and inside we gave them the agenda for the evening, the parent engagement policy from each building. We each have a different one, our family compact, and then a couple brochures, and then a feedback collection tool that we used with families. A flyer was provided to our families explaining the federal requirements, elements that we have to tell them about, that we get to tell them about. And those are curriculum, assessment, reading recovery, EL, Jumpstart funding, State of the Schools report, Title I language, and the Nebraska Reads link. And then the most amazing thing happened. In previous years, our PTOs have all come together and given $200 to provide the food. Well, this year, Hy-Vee, one of our business partners, graciously donated all of the food. So that was it. Gave us a little bit of that money back, and they provided food for 500 people. So we had hot dogs, chips, waters, and cookies. So we want to thank them.
All right, in preparation for our Title I event, we're always thinking about what would be a benefit to our parents. So this year we went with Carrie Gottschalk. She discussed with parents parent-child interactive therapy that they could use at home with their students and their kiddos in just 5 minutes a day, which actually goes along with what our teachers do at our Title I buildings in K1, which is teacher-child interactive therapy. So there was a good correlation between home and school for that. Carrie has 25 years in the fields of education and mental and behavioral health. She works with children, families, and educators. She has expertise in the areas of social, emotional development, fostering secure attachment, trauma-informed care, strategies for reducing challenging behaviors, and promoting personal, emotional, and mental well-being. She is passionate about developing and delivering research-informed practices that promote positive social, emotional development through fostering secure adult-child relationships. So she was pretty incredible, and she was the speaker for the parent part. And with that, if you're wondering where the kids were during the parent portion, they were very busy. So students and siblings, so even if the kiddos weren't in school yet or a little bit older, we had things for them to do. So we had 4 different rotations for the kiddos. And so we had some Title I specialists. So we want to thank Ms. Chu, Mr. Burson, and Ms. Snader. They graciously provided time during the evening to facilitate some activities. So some of those things included the students were allowed to select some free books along with reading time. They also had a station where they did a book or decorated a book bag, and then Mr. Burson facilitated the PE activities, and then we had a craft provided for the students by Oriental Trading Company. And then also just a special shout out to our National Honor Society and Education Academy student volunteers from both of our high schools. We had a great turnout, lots of help, again, from both of those schools. They helped set up, and they did the activity stations, and they tore down as well.
So one component of the family night event is, or the annual meeting, is we have to ask, or we get to ask families to provide feedback on our school compact and our family engagement policy. And so you can see this is an example of one of those feedback forms that they fill out. They give us some just ideas and suggestions for changes. They ask us questions. And then, we just had a lot of positive feedback. Families were really excited to be out, participating in another family, our first family night event in quite some time. And so they just asked that we continue to do more and more of those events. And just, they appreciate the reminder of how to promote success between family and school. And so that was really great to see. Oh, after we do the feedback, we do take the information back to school, and we take a look at that with our Title I teams, and then we make any changes or adjustments that need to be made to our policies and compacts. And the best part of the evening, the door prizes. And we had a lot of excitement with the door prizes. We reached out to local community sponsors and just asked if they'd be willing to donate an opportunity for families to get out into the community this summer. And so these 10 groups of people, businesses, took that call and donated some really amazing prizes. Families were given 2 tickets upon entry into the event, and then they got to pick what they wanted to, be in. Put in their basket, and then we drew names at the end of the event, and then we passed out prizes at school the next day, and it was pretty fun going around giving out prizes to kids. So it was a lot of fun. So with that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
So just before we do questions, so these 5, with Tracy, 4, I could count. Along with Tracy, these 5 individuals, along with their building leaders, organized this event. And it was a lot of work, but it was super energizing to see all of our families coming together in this social environment. They get a meal, and then they also get an opportunity for their kids to socialize and get a couple of activities as well as some tips. We have 5 title buildings in our district, just as a reminder. It is part of the 2015 Every Student Succeeds Act. And those 5 buildings are designated by the percent of income and poverty that are identified within that building. It's just one of the many support services that they receive. And this has been our second one, correct? We hope to do it an annual, and then COVID hit and we had to delay a couple. But for the second one with a break in between, we had an awesome turnout, and we want to thank our families and our leaders. So now, if you have any questions for them?
I don't have any questions, but I think anytime you can bring people together to celebrate something like this, it's a fantastic event. I appreciate that the parents had a time to go separate and not have to worry about their kiddos, and the kids could go and have fun. It reminds me of the old days. We used to have ice cream socials and things. When I was little, we don't do that anymore, but I think it's great when you can bring them into the buildings and they can get together and work. And thank you for the work you're doing. Title I is a great benefit to the district and helps your buildings. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
I know there was a break, but did you see as much engagement and the same number or greater number of people this time than you did before? Because I know it was very successful the first time you had it. So I was curious. I'm assuming people missed it when they didn't get to come.
So the first time we did it a few years ago, there was right about 500, and this was upwards of 400. So very similar.
It did snow that evening.
Yeah, it was bad weather.
In case you didn't know, it was like snow, hail, sleet, all the things happened that night.
We were pretty happy.
Yeah, it was a great turnout.
Just got to say thank you so much for all your hard work on this. It's pretty. What did you do to your foot?
Story time.
Right, yeah. Stress fracture. I'd taken a little time off from running, and I hit back at it hard, and that was a poor choice. So.
I just had to ask, sorry.
Well, you're just fine.
Really do appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Any other board comments, questions regarding our Title I annual family meeting? No, thank you all. Great
you.
presentation. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Ladies.
All right. That was since we moved one of the items up, that was a very short discussion and information items section this evening. That concludes section 4, discussion and information items. Moving on to section 5, our future board calendar. This is where we pick up the slack. Bear with me. Is it FOS or FASI? Is it
Phase?
Phase. All right. I knew the whole meeting I was like, I'm going to mess this up. So April 26th, so tomorrow evening, April 26, 2022, the Phase Awards presentation at 3:40 p.m. here at the central office. April 28th, 2022, the Education Academy Senior Celebration at 1:40 p.m. here at the central office. Also April 28th, 2022, the Papillion La Vista South High School Honors Night at 7 p.m. I believe that's in the gymnasium, or is Monarch in the gymnasium, and are they in the auditorium?
They're both auditorium.
Both in the
In the gyms, thank you.
Okay, yep. So Titan Arena for that. May 3rd, the Health System Senior Ceremony at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. at CHI Midlands. There are two because we have a lot of students that enjoy that academy. May 3rd, 2022 is the Papillion La Vista High School, the Monarch Honors Night at 7 p.m. at Monarch Arena. May 4th, 2022, the Zoo Academy Senior Ceremony, again at 9 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. at the Omaha Henry Dorley Zoo. May 6, 2022, Project Search graduation at 8:30 a.m. at Embassy Suites. Again, May 6, 2022, the Young Adult Transition Program 2022 graduation at 12 p.m. also at Embassy Suites. And then for the major item, for our seniors, May 8th, 2022 is commencement. Papillion La Vista High School, the Monarch graduation at 1 p.m. this year, and Papillion La Vista South with Titan graduation at 5 p.m., both graduations at Baxter Arena. And then finally, on May 9th, 2022, the next Board of Education meeting at 6 p.m. Here at the central office. Seeing no further business before the board this evening, I would like to adjourn the Papillion La Vista Community Schools Board of Education meeting for April 25th, 2022 at 7:26 p.m. Thank you all.